Hey, everybody. Testing the chat. Chat's working. Welcome back to another episode of Goju Tech Talk. I am rocking out with a brand new dream clinic that might be my favorite. It is this one. Right down here at the bottom. Inquisitor. Just came out 10 days ago, I think. Somewhere, 10 days ago. This guy might be my new favorite. So if you see me bopping around, that's what's going on. I can't help it. It's quite good, at least for me. So today, we're going to talk about three primary things, but, we may meander. We're going to talk about exercise and how it's good for just about everything. Maybe weight loss, but really a lot of it is for things outside of weight loss, at least according to many medical doctors. It's not to say that exercise can't be used for weight loss, but a good diet is, I think, the thing they strongly recommend. That said, exercise, I think, has numerous benefits in almost every other area. I think as Dr. Mike talks about it, you generally don't use exercise for weight loss, but it's good for about everything else. Mental health, physical health, mood regulation, just all kinds of things. So we're going to talk about exercise. Then we're going to talk about being exceptional. And I'm going to have a slightly different take on this than I think some people might have. My take is going to be on trying to be good, not trying to be great. And hopefully this will make sense as we start to get into it. And I believe that this is the path to becoming exceptional, focusing on goodness rather than greatness. And lastly, we'll talk about effort and how effort is one of the things that you can control in your life, your effort for things. And this, I think, is one of the best ways to do truly incredible things, because it's focusing on qualities that are mutable, not things that are immutable, which is sort of the cornerstone of many of the things we discuss on this channel. So those are going to be our three areas of focus. I wanted to give a shout out first to Dream Clinic and his amazingness. I dropped in a couple here. I gave him a super thanks because I absolutely love this. I commented on this, and then I realized I think I was supposed to do the donation over here, but whoops. I'll try to get it right in the future. But absolutely love Dream Clinic. And if you haven't had a chance to check out Inquisitor and you seem to like the same kind of music that I like, check it out. See what you think. Okay. Now I think we can get into it. Let's start with exercise. Now, this is on my list of things. I think somewhere. Exercise. What you exercise Yeah. That's what I'm talking about, T. Welcome to the party, T. So what I'm talking about with exercise is you do you. Whatever exercise is best for you, do that. I'm not trying to tell you any specific exercise. I'll share with you what I do for exercise, but you should do the things that are right for you. You may be in your 20s, and so maybe you like to run sprints. You may be in your 70s, and you like to just do casual walks. Whatever it is that you enjoy, that's going to get your heart rate up. It's going to help you with hopefully anaerobic and aerobic exercise. Anaerobic is exercise, as I understand it, that generally functions without the necessity of oxygen. And aerobic is exercise that generally requires oxygen through the bloodstream to keep things going. Anaerobic exercise is things like weightlifting. Aerobic exercise are things like running a marathon. And generally speaking, anaerobic exercises are short and bursty. So you generally don't do 2,000 reps on a bench press. You might do 20 at most, maybe. Oftentimes, I think for like the power lifters, they might be doing 1 to 3 reps. I tend to do a lot of weightlifting, and my reps, I tend to go to failure, and that varies based on the weight. But I usually, with the exception of maybe the warm-up set, I won't do, on average, maybe I'll cap it like 16 reps. And that's somewhat unusual. Most of the time, the reps that I'm doing are anywhere between maybe like 6 and 12, something like that. But it varies based on the weight and how tired I am, all of those things. Now, you don't have to do weightlifting, although there is a lot of data that's emerging saying that muscle mass is one of the most important indicators for longevity. And it kind of makes sense, is that lean muscle mass is sort of deteriorating as you're getting older. It's harder to keep on lean muscle mass. And without lean muscle mass, one of the, as strange as this may sound, one of the more common ways to run into sort of mortality events later in life are things related to falling. Falling is one of the Here we go. Yeah. Muscle mass index as a predictor for longevity. Yes, maintaining or building muscle mass is important. A longer lifespan, better quality of life. Muscle mass is strongly linked to reduced mortality risk, lower chance of developing chronic disease. One of the biggest ones is this one, is that the more muscle mass you have, the more it increases the density of your bones. So more muscle, more bone density. More bone density means when you fall, it's less likely that you will have a fracture or a break. This is super important as you get older in life, is that falling can be one of the easiest ways to become like an end-of-life event. Because if you fall and you have a catastrophic break, like you break your hip, then what happens is in the process of healing, you become immobilized. When you're immobilized, your aerobic health and your anaerobic health are declining because you often can't do anything. So you're already disadvantaged because you're older, right? And so you don't have the regeneration that you might have had in your 20s. Now you're immobilized, and so you can't do forms of exercise. And while you're immobilized, your muscle mass is declining even further because your muscles are atrophying. So one way to get in front of this is to find a way to build lean muscle mass. It doesn't have to be weightlifting. You could do yoga. I think that's a really good one. And there's other sort of various interesting forms of resistance training that's not weightlifting. One of the ones that I do that's both aerobic and anaerobic is I do steep incline walking on the treadmill. So I have a treadmill that cranks up to a 15% incline. And so I set it at the steepest incline that I can. And then I just walk essentially as fast as I can. And I'm getting both aerobic and anaerobic benefits. The aerobic benefit is my heart is elevated, and it's a similar-ish type of exertion that one might have if you're running. Not exactly the same, but similar-ish. However, in addition to just the aerobic exercise, there's an anaerobic component, because when you're walking on an incline, you are doing resistance training. The resistance is your body mass. Because you're not walking flat, you're fighting against gravity. It's almost like you're walking stairs. This is why you'll often see weightlifters, when they do their cardio, they will do stair stepper or they'll do massive incline on the treadmill. A big reason for that is they want to do exercise that's going to help their cardio. It's going to be aerobic, but it's also going to be anaerobic and give resistance training so they won't burn off muscle mass. So just a little commentary from the weightlifter side of me. Now, the key thing is, it's not really, in my mind, it's not really what the exercise is. You could do rowing, you could jump rope, sprints. If you can do sprints, sprints are supposedly one of the best forms of exercise that you can do. It's highly correlated to increase of human growth hormone, HGH. And it's also one of those things where it does aerobic and anaerobic simultaneously. However, sprints can be very dangerous. So if you are not already a very advanced athlete, you're just trying to get back into exercise, I do not recommend sprints. Strong recommend that you don't do sprints, that you work your way up to that. I know many people that wanted to do sprints for all the benefits, but they hadn't been exercising for a while, and they jumped right in and started doing sprints, and they injured themselves, and they can't work out for like 6 months. So easier way into it, maybe light jog, maybe speed walking, then a light jog, then like an 80%, and then eventually get to the sprints. I also recommend that for all the sprints that you do, hey Mash, all the sprints that you do, you make sure that you have really good warm up, that you want your muscles to be warm. You don't want to start totally cold and go full sprint. The likelihood that you could injure yourself is pretty high. And similarly, I think that, yeah, absolutely. Right. So Taylor's saying he knows many people that have hurt their knees or tore their ACL because they didn't follow this. Similarly, this also applies for weightlifting. Do yourself a favor. If you're gonna weightlift, minimally give yourself a warm-up set. And the warm-up set is really just to get the blood flowing, right? It's just to help ensure that when you increase the weight, you're not going to injure yourself from going from completely cold to full speed. I mean, think of it like this. You wouldn't without like some prep lean down and try to pick up 300 pounds of weights. At least I think that you probably wouldn't. You would want to kind of psych yourself up for this and do other things to get those muscles activated and engaged, and then do it. So if you're doing anything with resistance training, and by the way, sprints are also resistance training. It's a different type of exercise than just doing a light jog, because you are pushing yourself to the limit. Anytime that you're pushing yourself to the limit for a short period of time, it's generally that you're doing exercise that is at least partially anaerobic. Again, bench press, you're going to do this for a little bit. You're not going to do it for like 5 hours straight, like you might running a marathon, right? Same with squats, same with sprints. I don't know anyone that can sprint full speed for more than maybe 5 minutes. I know many people that have developed an incredible clip of running to where their speed running is so fast that it's equivalent to other people's sprint pace, but those people are not sprinting. When they're sprinting, they can generally maintain that sprint cadence for maybe 2 minutes max. It's sort of like the whole cheetah thing. Is cheetahs can do this top speed of 60 miles an hour or some nonsense, but they're not maintaining that for like 2 hours, right? So anyway, I wanted to mention this first because not only will exercise do great things for your physical health, there are many indicators that it will help you with like your mental health. And so this is an article that I found. Let's go a little bit back. This is from the National Library of Medicine. This article was written, I think, by three medical doctors, I believe. And it's been cited, I want to say 500, 600 times. And it came out in 2006. So the point is that this, I believe, has been substantiated and referenced by the community in some capacity. So when we go into this and we look at this, so here are it's two medical doctors and one PhD. Although this person might have this person has an MD and a PhD. So it is three medical doctors, and one of them also has doctorate of philosophy. Okay. So now in this letter to the editor, which is sort of this informal thing, but notice that they do have citations, so that increases some our degree of confidence in some capacity, because they're not just like making random claims. This is also why I'm including a paper here to substantiate my claims, is I'm saying exercise improves things not just for your physical health, but also for your mental health. And now we're looking at this short paper that's substantiating this claim, pulled from this. Now, this isn't like fully peer reviewed. This is just a letter to the editor, but you can do your own research and then basically find the same thing. Some of the things that they talk about are here. And I think that, first of all, this one is 1000% one of the main reasons why I do exercise. I have a lot of trouble with insomnia. And when I exercise, especially when I do the hard combo of aerobic and anaerobic, like the stair stepper or the sprints, I will generally sleep really well. I'll be able to fall asleep pretty easily. That's awesome. Since this is a family channel, I'm going to skip this second one, but you guys can all read it. Better endurance, yes. And I think that it's oftentimes it's better physical and mental endurance. This is, I think, really key. Stress relief, improvement in mood. Almost universally, what I find is that after exercise, I just feel better. So I exercised today, and I feel better. I have, I think, increased energy and stamina. Awesome. I think I do have reduced tiredness, and it is increasing my mental alertness. Now, obviously, after you do a lot of exercise and you have a period of time, like if you really, really push yourself, for example, the first marathon that I ran, when I finished that, I don't know that I had increased mental alertness. Okay. But we're not running marathons every day. So hopefully you can see this is sort of the exception. Most days, maybe we're running like 6 miles or something, or we're doing at most maybe like an hour on the stair stepper or an hour or two at the gym. We're not doing like a 12-hour session. Notice that the weight reduction here is, sort of last or lower on their list. I think that goes back to that point I was making, is a lot of times people will, I think, conflate some of the benefits of exercise into thinking that a lot of exercise will give you, it'll help you lose fat. I think that it can, but I think if you exercise like crazy and you don't fix your diet, like if you're eating, really the key, there's many people before me that have said this. One of the key ways to lose weight is to be running at a calorie deficit. So you're intaking fewer calories than you're outputting. Makes sense. So you're outputting 2,500 calories during the day, doing whatever, and you're intaking only 2,000 calories. You're a 500 calorie deficit every day. Over time, you'll lose weight for the most part. It depends on what those calories are. Obviously, if you're 2,000 calories of just like pure sugar, that's not good. But I think you get the point. If we are being intellectually honest, you can see how the calorie intake can have a direct impact on your weight. Now, the key point is that exercise will also burn calories, but oftentimes exercise is burning significantly fewer calories than what we think it is. For example, I think I was on the stair stepper for 55 minutes or something, and I think that in that 55 minutes at a 15% incline, I think I only burned something like 500 calories, which is maybe the equivalent of like 1.5 Snickers bars, maybe, which is not much. So what I think sometimes happens is people do exercise and then they get into this reward system. Oh, I just did an hour of exercise, and so now I can eat whatever I want. And so you go get all the fast food, you order the 5 Big Macs, and you burned off 500 calories, but you just ingested 3,000 calories. The math doesn't quite work. So my strong recommendation is that if you do want to reduce your weight, exercise can help. But really what I think you want to do is not necessarily reduce weight. You want to focus more on reducing fat. And this can become too unhealthy if you decrease your fat percentage too low. Like, I think, I'm not going to get the numbers right here, but generally speaking, I think for women, 15% body fat is quite healthy. And maybe down to 12% can be healthy, but anything below that, it starts becoming a risk to your physical health. And for men, I think that I want to say it's like 9 to 12%, something like that. And once you start getting below 9%, then it starts becoming a health risk. And I'm mentioning this because you may see these bodybuilders that compete and they are rolling in at, like, some of the men are probably rolling in at 3% body fat. That's really unhealthy. And mostly they only do this for the shows. And I say that because I know many of these people. I'm a pretty ardent weightlifter, and I don't do the competitions, or I was before my shoulder surgery, but I don't do any of the competitions, but I know many people that do. And I know what their general philosophy is, that they know they can't maintain 3% body fat over a long period of time. Otherwise, it'd probably kill them. So they don't. They just prepare for that, for the look before the show, and then they put the weight back on. I think of all the competitive bodybuilders that I know, most of them will hover themselves around 9 to 12% when they're not in competition mode. That will be the lowest. So some of them will bump up to 15%, depending on if they're trying to bulk, this type of thing. But they're not rolling at 3% body fat year round, because it'd probably kill them. Like, when you get your body fat that low, what happens is you start to deteriorate your immune system. You become super susceptible to things like colds. You just become very fragile. Like the slightest thing, you just literally not. Your body needs more insulation for fat, and so yeah, don't maybe go crazy in that regard. Okay. On top of that, yeah, the reason why I mentioned the fat and not weight reduction is that there's often a lot of confusion around this BMI thing, body mass index. I think that some of the people that were showing it were like some very clearly healthy people had obese body mass index because it's just accounting for your weight and your height. It's not accounting for your muscle mass, which is not a good indicator at all. So when you start to do weightlifting or anaerobic exercises, your weight can go up. Your weight can increase, not decrease. Even though you are reducing your fat, you're increasing your muscle, and you're reducing the fat at a slower rate than you're increasing the muscle, so your weight goes up. But you're actually making yourself more healthy. This is why generally my view is using a scale to determine your success in your physical fitness is often a really bad mechanism for doing this. A lot of sort of pro athletes or people that compete in these super shredded things, they will tell me one of the key ways that they determine if they are achieving their goals is how they look and feel in their clothes. That will be their indicator. So you put on your pants and then you realize, oh, the belt is one notch tighter. Wow, that's pretty cool. And then you go to the scale and you realize, wow, but I'm 5 pounds heavier. So are you moving in the wrong direction or the right direction? It's quite possible you're moving in the right direction. But if you just use the scale's telling you that you're moving in the wrong direction. So my non-medical professional guidance, don't listen to me because I don't really know what I'm talking about, is drop the scale, go more for how your clothes fit and how you feel, and use that as a metric, and don't really use exercise as a weight loss mechanism. Use improved nutrition to do those things, and don't try to reduce weight. Try to get your muscle fat ratio under control. That's, I think, the short advice that I can give. So needless to say, the point of this is that many of these things here are helping us with things not related to our physical fitness. But this is exercise, right? And so if we go back, we can see I did effects of exercise on mental health. Exercise has significant positive effects on mental health. Regular physical activity can improve mood, reduce stress, anxiety, depression, even lower risk of cognitive decline. That one's a really big one in my mind. Exercise achieves this by impacting brain chemistry, releasing endorphins. By the way, the endorphin thing, this is probably one of the best natural highs that you can get. The dopamine hits and the endorphin hits. Generally, the way that I think about this is endorphins usually come, again, not a medical doctor, but I have run a few races and I have done weightlifting for the better part of maybe 20 years or so. What I generally see is with weightlifting, you can get dopamine hits. So if you do a really rigorous weightlifting thing, you'll get this warm sensation. That's usually like these dopamines, I think. When you run, my experience has been, or you do a large amount of cardio, what I found is at a certain point, your body will release endorphins. And these are different types of natural highs. Both of them, I think, are fantastic. The other thing that's really great about it is they are natural. Is your body is generating this natural high all on its own. And you can do this pretty much every time you exercise, which is a huge plus. And it's healthy. Part of the reason why your body is releasing these is one, you're accomplishing something. So the dopamine hits are triggered by things that are, giving us some positive affirmation. Like you clean your room, you do your chores, you get a like on social media, stuff like that. That maybe is not a good one. The other ones I think are good. The same thing with like the weightlifting. You do your sets, you're feeling positive, you got a good blood flow, burn, all that. Yeah, so that's sort of the dopamine, at least as I understand it. There's probably a lot more to it than just that. The endorphins is slightly different, as I understand it. Endorphins are more of you are reaching some sort of pain threshold over a prolonged period of time, and your body is saying that you should suffer less, but it doesn't kick in the endorphins for some period of time. That's why I'll say that I usually have to do cardio exercise for some duration before the endorphins kick in, but I know when they kick in because it's like night and day. It's like I'm suffering, and then all of a sudden I'm like natural high, and wherever I was running, I'm like, I can run 3 times that now. Whereas literally 2 minutes before that, I might have been saying, okay, I want to quit. I don't want to do this anymore. And then the endorphins kick in, and it's like totally different ballgame. So if you haven't experienced this and you're in the right kind of physical shape to do some kind of light jogging, I encourage you to do this. Usually what it does for me is pushing myself at, let's say, 75 to 80% of my maximum ability for, I would say, approximately like 30 minutes is when it usually, I'll get the endorphin rush. And then the endorphins for me will usually last, I don't know, maybe 1 to 2 hours after that. So right now, the exercise that I did on the stair stepper was around, say, like 5 p.m.-ish, and it's around 7 p.m.-ish now. So I'm still feeling like a good amount of endorphins, which is great. So on top of all the physical things, as we just discussed, like the article was talking about, mood, stress, anxiety, depression, all of this stuff. And again, you don't have to believe me or the paper that I referenced, right? So this is 2006. It's cited 601 times. You can do your own research, but I think the evidence is the scientific evidence is pretty strongly, there's a strong causal link between the exercise we do and the benefits that we get both physically and mentally. All right. That's exercise. And notice too that for me, the exercise is far more, as you probably have clearly seen, it's more about the mental. It's the physical is like the secondary piece. I'm doing it to manage all of this stuff, this stress, anxiety, and depression. I want those things and to regulate mood. I want that stuff to be sorted out. And it helps significantly, at least for me. So you do you. All right. Next topic. And by the way, feel free to toss anything in the chat if there's anything additional that you want to discuss. Actually, let's take a short break just so I can have a quick bio break. I'll be right back. And I practice this now of keeping the stream on while I walk away, and I think it's mostly good as long as I don't bump anything. So feel free to go refill your drink and get popcorn and stuff. We'll be back in 2 minutes. I'll just leave this just like it is. Cool. Okay. Now I want us to talk about being exceptional. And this could be a little bit of a reverse take. Well, let's see what Taylor has to say before I dive in this. So Taylor's saying that with regard to endorphins, his favorite workouts are running and HIIT, high impact intensity training, HIIT workouts. Like you said, I feel great for hours after. Yeah, absolutely. And I 100% agree with that. I think HIIT is fantastic. One comment on HIIT, just so we're on the same page. if you are new to exercise, probably don't go straight into HIIT workouts. This is, again, something like sprints that you want to slowly ramp up to it. And mostly this is just to protect you from injuring yourself. I know it can be desirable to dive right into the advanced stuff, like running sprints, doing heavy weights in weight training, and doing things like high intensity impact training. But my recommendation is you ease into that warmer water, so to speak. Just kind of move at your own pace, whatever. Like if you start to feel pain, strongly recommend you back off of it. And this is coming from someone who I didn't follow my own advice, and I had to have full reconstructive shoulder surgery because of it. So don't be silly like me over here. Actually, don't do as I say, don't do as I do. I'm a terrible role model. Okay, now on to being exceptional. I'm not trying to have a reverse take on this to be like contrarian, but I want to share something that I think I've learned on this that I think maybe inhibited me earlier in my career because I was focused on the wrong things. Let me give you an example. There was a comment that we received on GTT where someone was saying, and I'm gonna foster goodwill and assume that the question was a serious question. It wasn't meant to troll because I don't really care about those things. So if someone's trolling me, I just ignore it. And if they're asking a question, like I've said many times, I'll treat every question like it's a real question, and foster goodwill. So this person's question was, how is it that you have over 1 million subs, but your most popular videos only have a few 100,000 views, and there's only like a dozen or so comments? Now, what I responded back was one that, like it's actually worse than that, because when we do the concurrent viewers for streams, I think it's only around 10. So it's even worse than maybe what he is or she thinks it is. But that's not what matters to me. I care more about quality than quantity. It's super important to have high quality things, and the quantity piece, I think, will come later, and or not at all, but I sort of just don't care. And I think this is one of the key differences between when people are doing things for goodness versus for greatness. So let me give you an example. Jeff Bezos will often talk about how there's two types of founders. There's a founder who is a mercenary, and the person wants to make a whole bunch of money. In some sense, I think this person wants to be great. They want greatness. And greatness is usually related to just that person. That's what they're thinking about. I want to be great. It's me. And so the focus is all on the self. It's very self-interested. It's self-centered. It can be narcissistic for people that are trying to achieve greatness. Because how do you achieve greatness? Well, the focus is all on you. What do I need to do to become great? And the truth is, of all the people that I know, none of the people that have actually become great were trying to be great. They were trying to be good. Which again is a very strange thing, is that the people that are trying too hard to be great, they end up self-sabotaging because they're too focused on themselves, and they forget about other people. They forget about why it is they're doing the things that they're doing. Like, so you amass a whole bunch of money. Okay, then what? So you end up being like the big boss of some thing. Then what? Like these things are attainable, but it's what you do with those things. So if your goal is just to have be on this perch, and then you get there and you are the emperor, but you are a really bad emperor, then history's not going to treat you that kindly. At least I don't think so. Not long term. You may have the benefit of short term memory, but over the long term, I think that idea of you being great because you were so self centered is likely to backfire. Okay, that is the mercenary part of Jeff Bezos's story. Well, what about the missionary? Well, missionaries, I think, are more concerned with goodness. And what I mean by that is they're not thinking about being great. They don't care. What they're thinking about is being good. Is they generally want to be in the service of other people. They're doing things that are trying to help others. That's where they're spending the majority of their time. And it doesn't mean that in the process of like trying to make other people better, they aren't also making themselves better. Let me give you an example. Part of the reason why I created GTT is I wanted to share the things that I know about programming and science and machine learning and creating a startup and all this stuff. More just like to share my stories with the general public. And so it's really about, I'm focused more on the goodness part. This is maybe not necessarily helping my company directly. This is cutting into time that I could be spending elsewhere. But I think that overall, the larger charter is it will benefit people. At least that's my hope. Now, the byproduct of this is I've had to get better at doing this whole voting thing, get better at being recorded, improve my communication skills, try to focus on improving my ability to articulate myself, eliminate filler words, have better delivery of stories and narratives. These are all things that are benefiting me by having a focus on benefiting others. This is one of the reasons why when you are focused on goodness, you end up becoming great because you're doing this for the service of others. And the byproduct is you have to become better to do these things to be good. And then what happens is you shift over here. Marcus Aurelius, I don't think ever had any intention of being great. I think he just wanted to be a good man. And the outcome of really wanting to be a good human being ended up with him being one of the greatest philosophers in the history of the Roman Empire, at least in my perspective, as a Stoic. Like he's legendary. And I don't think that that was ever his goal. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe someone will correct me. But I think if you look at the virtues of Stoicism, the virtues of Stoicism are not about greatness. They're about goodness. They're about not lashing out at people with being emotionally reactive. They're about being reasonable and logical and fostering goodwill, all of this stuff. It's really centered around this. And then I think that can lead to this. So my higher order bit on this second one is for those of you that want to become exceptional, like you want to do things that are exceptional, you have this desire to push things further, which is awesome. I love that. My advice to you, the best way that you can do that is don't try to be great. Just try to be good. It's much, much harder to be a very good person than it is to go down this path of trying to be great. And on top of this, the byproduct of goodness, I think, is greatness. And the opposite is not true. The byproduct of achieving greatness does not necessarily have a transitivity to goodness. I suspect many of you can probably think of concrete examples of people that maybe in their minds think that they're great. And many of us know that while they may have done great things, that might not be things that we like. They are not necessarily good people. So follow this. This is my approach in life, is trying to follow this path. And it'll be slower. Just to be clear, this is going to be the slow path. This is going to be the path where you're going to be challenged, and it's going to be harder, but it's going to be the path that's filled with the rocks, right? And the weather and the elements and the challenges, and all of those things are going to make you better. And not only are they going to make you better, you're going to be raising all boats simultaneously, right? It's a tremendous feeling. The last piece I want to share about this exceptional piece is that one of the greatest things we can do, I think, for mood enhancement is to be in the service of others. This is why I was saying that when I finish a GTT episode, I often feel like a certain level of elation. Part of that, admittedly, is that, okay, I'm done. And so the stress, right? Because I'm still new at this. I've only been doing this for 3-4 months or something. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just doing what I do, which is I just do this. I'm just doing small footsteps every day, or trying to do every day. And then what I found is if I do that long enough, then interesting things tend to happen. So I'm just doing this, and I'm learning. And so with this YouTube thing, I'm still learning, and I'm growing constantly, and I'm striving toward this piece. And maybe one day it'll end up over here, but I don't even really care. Going back to the guy that asking the question about the quantity, why do you have all this quantity here and not quantity here? I don't know. And honestly, I don't care. All I care about is that there are quality people that we're impacting. And as long as there's just a handful, so Taylor and Vare and Metaphor and some others, Dream Clinic, I'm now, at least I think Dream Clinic is my friend now. Like, he and I have been chatting, so I support him. He's supporting GTT. It's awesome. Like, that's what I'm setting out to do. And that's the beauty of trying to be good, is that when you go on this path of truly trying to be exceptional, and you're not trying to take shortcuts, you will often find fellow travelers that are also exceptional, like Taylor Dolezal, or Smuff, or Paul Gottschalk, Tim Matson. Many of these people that I've found in my travels doing it the slow and hard way. So that's the second piece. This is obviously an alliteration on purpose. Exercise, exceptional, effort. And by the way, with the exceptional part, one more thing I want to add is, because there's a relatively famous startup guy who's like super buff. I can't remember his name. I think it's Alex something. And he will talk about how doing a startup or doing great things, maybe great's not the right word, but doing things of impact will make you an exception. But it's important to understand that when you're on the path of becoming exceptional, by the definition of being exceptional, you are the exception, which means you're likely going to be lonely, because most people are not doing what you're doing. That's what it means to be the exception. That's what it means to be exceptional, is you're not in the group with everyone else. And so this is often why people will say, like, the road to whatever is lonely. And that's something that I think you should come to terms with. I noticed this quite a bit when I first created my first startup, Nautica, and I was working around the clock, and all my friends wanted to go out and party and do stuff, and I just wanted to work. And it started to create massive distance between me and them. And at first, I didn't know exactly what to do. I was like a little confused and I felt lonely. But then I started to realize that, and again, this is not a judgment thing. There's no judgment here. Like, people can spend their time however they want. That's on you. But I want to do good work. And I know that this is a long path. I know that I'm going to have to dedicate my life to it. And so that's what I'm going to do. And because of that, the byproduct is I'm going to likely have a lot more moments of loneliness, which is not bad, by the way. I think that there's this belief that let me rephrase this. I mean, it is lonely, but it's not lonely in the sense that there's a regret. It's more of, it's teaching you how to really become independent. That in today's society, I think that there is a large amount of dependence that we have. And I'm all for us functioning as a community. Right? I need tons of people and tons of help. I'm dependent on a number of people, but not for like very simple things. I can go to the grocery store by myself. I can go to the movies by myself. I can exercise by myself. I can do all of these things by myself. And I know that as strange as this sounds, there's a lot of people that really need somebody with them. And I would encourage any of you, like, assuming that it's safe, right? I would encourage some of you to ask this question of why, if you're in that category of needing someone with you, why do you need someone? Is it that you are potentially codependent? Or is it that it just improves the quality of the experience? Like, if it's just improving the quality of experience, but you are really independent, you can make your own decisions. That's great. But if it's that you have a codependence, you need other people to assist you with your decision-making and things, I would encourage you to revisit this one, because too much reliance on external validation, I think, is one of the fastest ways to get you off this path of exceptionality. And part of the reason for that is, to be exceptional, you have to be the exception. But how can you be the exception if you're doing what everyone else is doing? You can't, because you wouldn't be exceptional. You would just be ordinary. And there's nothing wrong with ordinary, but if your goal is to be exceptional, that means you likely are going to be alone, at least for some period of time, until you find other people that are truly exceptional. You will find them, or at least it's been my experience that you will find them, but you will likely have to persist for some period of time and meander on your own. It's not always a super fast path to find those fellow travelers. That's been my experience. All right. I think that's enough for our second topic. And now we can go for our third topic. Effort. Oh, before I do that, are there any comments from the chat if you want to chime in and agree, disagree? I can take a sip of my drink here. Okay, I see some emojis. So, cool. And don't be afraid of the chat. I realize many of you are from non-English speaking countries, and you might be watching GTT to learn English, which is super cool, by the way. I have a huge amount of respect for many of the folks that I think are using GTT this way, because you're like learning about science and technology, and at the same time, you're learning English language. Wow. Like, talk about being exceptional. That's amazing. Taylor saying full +1 on the loneliness and it being worth it in the end, in my experience. Yes, absolutely. And what's interesting is, I think at first when you're alone, you might be lonely. But over time, what happens is I think you build your own internal. Yeah, absolutely. Everyone's super friendly in the chat. We don't generally do like mean chats. So what I tend to find is that you may go down this path of being alone, and at first it can be very lonely. But over time, I think you start to build a level of independence. And once that happens, I think that being alone can be a wonderful thing. That oftentimes when I'm doing my deepest thinking, I need to be alone because I need to deeply process many things that are going on. And I have people that I can call on at any point in time, but I will prefer to be alone when I need to just have clarity of thought. And that's because I'm not lonely. I'm not being when I'm alone, I'm not lonely. When I'm alone, I'm able to walk through my thoughts more clearly without any distractions, any other voices that are potentially good or bad. There's essentially all noise is subsiding. So maybe something to consider as you're going down this path of aiming to be exceptional. And I'd love to hear your stories. I've had many. So doing Nautica was one of the first ones that was a big thing. Then when I was doing my doctorate, that was another big moment. And when I started to do research in like machine programming, that was another bout of loneliness. And then there's others that I've experienced. And in each one of those, the end result, I think, is something that I've absolutely loved. It's been super arduous. It's been really hard, but that's part of what makes it so amazing. Is once you get through that adversity, like there's this quote that I used to have on Nautica, maybe I still have it, is something like the rest after a journey, there's nothing quite as rewarding as the rest after an arduous journey, something like that. And I agree. I think that having these wins that were surrounded by failures, innumerable failures on a variety of fronts, only makes that win more impressive, more important, more fantastic. That if you try, and at the first try, right out of the gate, you get the perfect score. What have you learned? How did you grow? So at least for me, I tend to not be that interested in those kinds of wins. I think that this is part of the reason why, as I think I was telling folks on a prior episode, that I never teach the same lecture twice. I could, it would make my life easier, but I think that's boring. And so I change the lectures every year just to make it harder on myself. And I do that because it forces me to learn more things and constantly grow. And then I'm essentially seeking out failure. I'm going to fail. But in the process, I'm going to grow a lot more than if I just stay like right in that box. I'm constantly pushing to make that box bigger and bigger and bigger. And it's quite intentional. So maybe that's a good lead-in on effort. So effort, I wanted to talk about this, has a lot to do with exercise, focusing on goodness, in that both of these things require effort. And in some ways, very focused effort. That exercise, I think, at least for me, when I first started, usually the response my body has is, please stop, right? It's like my body's saying, I don't want to do this. This hurts. Can you please do something else? And then through this effort and through this will, I just kind of like power through it. And then same thing with being exceptional, is this focus on being good, and you're going to get beat up along the way, and people are going to question you, and there's going to be hardships, but you just continue with this effort. The beauty of the effort part is your effort on things is a mutable trait. It's a mutable characteristic. It's something that you can directly control. It's very much like this quote of, it's like the serenity quote of, give me the strength to solve the problems that I can, have the wisdom to, the serenity to not try to solve the problems I can't, and the wisdom to know the difference. Something like that. I'm probably butchering the quote, but I like this quite a bit because it goes back to this effort piece. Is the first part of that is the strength to do the things that are in my control. This is the stuff that's in your control. Effort is in your control. It's mutable. Many of these other things are out of your control. Like we talked about, your raw intelligence, your height, your hair color, your skin color, all of those things, other biological markers. You don't have any control over those. And so in some sense, it's kind of a waste of time focusing on these because they're not changeable. Whereas effort is, it's fully changeable. It's up to you to decide how much or how little effort you put into things. And my experience has been that all of the people that end up falling into this category here, at least the ones that I know or the ones that I know of, it's a huge amount of this piece. And I know that there's some people out there that have this belief that no, you're born Mozart or whatever. I don't subscribe to this view, and all the data that I've seen does not align with this. And maybe that is true, but I have yet to see a compelling argument. And for those of you who think that this is the truth, I strongly encourage you to read the book Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell. And Outliers, I think, talks about this whole thing about being exceptional. And at least from what I recall, he makes it really clear that these outliers are not necessarily outliers. They're mostly people that just did a bunch of this, a huge amount of this to become this. And that's what I found too. So my hope is that this stream, this Sunday evening stream, can get us pumped on these three different areas. Like, this is my hope. I was doing the exercise on the stair stepper, and I thought, we should talk about this. This should just be something, that general life advice on trying to push us all forward. The 3 E's, we'll call it, at least for today. Trying to find a way to do exercise, whatever that looks like for you, just you do you. But exercises generally seem to be really good for a variety of things. So if you can do it, I strongly encourage you to do it. If you're watching this channel, then I have a belief that you probably have aspirations to do exceptional things. And I think that's wonderful. I love that. I do as well. And my path is really to be a steward of goodness, to really try my best to be in the service of others. And the byproduct of that is, this is what I've seen, is it makes you, if you really dedicate yourself to being in the service of others, it will make you so much better in all of these other ways, because you have to level up to be in the service of others. Again, for my example is the leveling up that I'm needing to do GTT. Without GTT and being in the service of others, I don't necessarily level up on all these skills, possibly because I don't have to. And maybe, I'll be honest, I'm lazy at times. I'm not always motivated. And even though I'm introspective, as we discussed before, being introspective and being aware of your weaknesses versus fixing their weaknesses, these are two totally different things. What's great about being in the service of others is that in order to be of a good service, you likely will have to solve weaknesses to do this effectively. And they're going to be real weaknesses, things that you very quickly realize, oh, I'm not very good at this, but I really want to help others, so I need to level up. And again, if it's something that it's a skill, and most of these things are to help other people, then they are things that you can learn. And then lastly, the effort part is that in order to do this whole thing, I strongly believe that if you put it goes back to the CNC thing, competency and care. If you have failures due to competency, lack of competency, you didn't know how to code in JavaScript, you didn't know how to record a VOD, you didn't know how to use the chat properly, that's okay. You can learn those things. And then once you learn those things, now you know those things, and now it's not a problem anymore. But if you have failures due to lack of care, you have failures due to lack of effort, this is a major red flag for me, because this is something that indicates it could be recurring. And it's not just about the thing that you failed in, that you didn't try hard enough. It is having a lack of effort is a habit. It's a habit of being essentially lazy, right? This is why I'm talking about being in the service of others is a great way to become unlazy, is that if you really want to dedicate yourself, you'll see the things that you need to fix. And in order to do this effectively, you'll have to get better. Like, this is part of one of the things I had to do when I started teaching here, is I wasn't fully prepared, and now I'm in the service of others, and I've got to level up pretty fast because my students are expecting me to know things that I don't know. And so I have to go learn all those things and master all them, or learn them and be knowledgeable about them as much as I possibly can in that short period of time. So with that, I think that we're in a good spot. I think that's all I really wanted to say. I want to give the chat a moment to comment on anything additional before I sign off. So I'll give you guys all a moment. While I'm waiting, I also want to share that one of the things that helps me for at least the exercise and the effort is music. Whenever I'm exercising, I'm listening to music. This really helps me keep my energy high. And then when I'm doing things related to effort, like, again, this VOD, as we've discussed many times, I've got these guys in because they're helping with the effort. They're making it a little bit easier. They're giving me like a nice little punch of energy. Let's see. So Taylor's chiming in, and yeah, he's trying not to make an IEEE pun. But he's saying, I love the opportunity to learn into this week with more EEE. Yeah. Exercise, exceptional, effort. Absolutely. I love it as well. So with that, I hope you guys have a great rest of your Sunday, or whatever day it is, wherever you are. And thank you so much for hopping on. I'm going to upgrade this and turn it into the 4K version and drop this on the podcast with some of the empty spaces removed. And the next one will probably get a little bit more technical, since this was more life advice kind of thing. I like to kind of jump back and forth. Okay. Thanks, everybody.